3.5 miles long and rising 400 feet above sea level. The island today is administered by the Landmark Trust, but the wind is the real king of Lundy, making landing impossible in an easterly gale.
Excuse me, please.
Can you get across? All right. Sit together, Ruth.
You know, the thing that surprises people coming to Lundy for the first time is that this whole business of landing, because it's not like getting off at a bus stop. See, the steamer has to stand out in the bay under the cliffs of the east side of the island, while the passengers are ferried across to the landing beach in a jolly boat. Now, there are two boats, but it figures that if you want to spend as long on the island as possible, then you get into the first boat. Then everybody else has the same idea. Still, we're on, aren't we? The boat brings us to the only accessible landing beach on the island. It's entirely covered by the sea at high tide. And this landing stage is mounted on an old bus chassis, so they can pull it out of reach at the sea. "30,000 visitors a year wind their way up the stony track called Beach Road, giving beautiful views and bordered with flowers and ferns. And an almost vertical Jacob's ladder of steps mounts up to the South Light, built to replace the old lighthouse, which was too high and often obscured by fog. The South Light is visible for 22 miles and flashes every 5 seconds. Well, those westerly gales are so severe that they make it impossible for any trees to grow in anywhere but the most sheltered little pockets on this, the eastern side of the island. In fact, they've been so severe sometimes they've even been known to blow cows clean off the edge of the cliff and onto the rocks below. Well, I'm a little bit out of puff from that walk, but I've reached the point known as the battlements. And from here you can look right across the cliffs there on the eastern side up to Tibbet's Point, which is just about halfway along the island. The tower of St Helena's Church is the goal visitors set their sights on. It stands high up at the end of the long climb from the beach when you know you've made it at last. The brave little church was built of local granite in 1896 by the owner of the island, the Reverend William Heaven. The slates came from Tetbury in Gloucestershire. It has a peal of 8 bells and is cared for by the Vicar of Appledore in North Devon. It's only a step from the church to the village, the heart of Lundy, which is home for 20 or so residents who are there to welcome each new shipload of visitors. Well, this little roadway through the village bears the misleading title of High Street. Oh, if you call it High Street, you'd expect to see parking meters and rush hour crowds and traffic lights. Well, that's the whole point of coming to Lundy. There's just no traffic. Visitors can walk anywhere in this little village. Over the stone walls, there's the space and the solitude of the whole of the island at their disposal, but only in the time limit allowed them before the steamer leaves. That's usually up to about 3 hours, and we've got quite a lot to do, so let's start with the shop. I think one of the islanders won the nicest. These are what?
16 pence.
16 pence, and that's already stamped, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I see you've got the stamp on the left-hand side of the postcard. That's also traditional, is it?
Yes.
With the puffin
that's
on.
right. Yes, it's franked, you see, just long.
Yes.
So it has to go on the left.
Good, thanks very much. I better go outside and write that, otherwise I'll be in trouble when I get home.
Thank you very much.
Well, it was in 1929 that the GPO closed its own post office and telegraph station on the island, and it was then that the owner, Mr. Harmon, had the bright idea of introducing his own postage stamps. They are probably the earliest and the nicest and most genuine of all local issues. Everybody puts one on a postcard. I'll just finish this one. Love, Dad. And that should arrive. They're only 1 pence above the post office's legal rate. That's the whole point about them, just to cover the cost of transporting all the mail to the mainland. And it goes into Lundy's special post box, which is, of course, blue, as opposed to the GPO's bright red. All too soon, it's time to go. But you can't help feeling the sense of history about this island, standing as it does so remotely and exposed out there in the Atlantic at the beginning of the Bristol Channel. And there have been some strange stories in its past too, the wreckers. Over 100 wrecks are scattered around the coast, including that of HMS Montague, the fated wayward battleship that went aground in about 1906. Well, so many people have died on the rocks of Lundy, I feel quite pleased in a way that we're getting off safe and sound. Great. Room for one little one, is there? Good.